some resources. Those of you who might have clothes on your back, shoes on your feet, clothes, not worrying about where your next meal is, or your next roof is, or your next warm bed, or your next dry blanket. Um, these are life-saving, radical redistribution acts. But the reality is, there's a billion with a B poverty industry, $1 billion poverty industry that gets thousands and thousands of dollars from the settler government to so-called house us as houseless people. What myself, Omawali, Auntie Francis, and some other grassroots warriors here at Poor Magazine have been doing is constantly trying to navigate those what I call non-profiteers to get those little bit of crumbs that they so-called promise us. Well, guess what? Most of the time, our folks end up back on the street after Homefulness Hotel Fund. It's not okay, relatives. I have the honor of being here with my beautiful, amazing sister Auntie Omawali, who is one of the frontline warriors in the Homefulness Hotel Fund and roof over our head at Manna from Heaven, a spiritual warrior and an on-the-ground warrior who firsthand is going to tell us what's the non-profiteer situation, Omawali.
Thank you, Sister Tiny. I'm really very honored to be here this evening. And I wanted to bring to the listeners some idea about what the process has been previous to 2022 during the pandemic, and then after 2022 when the governor introduced HMIS, which is the Homeless Management Information System. Prior to 2022, there were 58 independent counties in California who had their own method of housing their homeless, treating them, supporting them, doing anything they could do to get them the help that they needed to become housed. After 2022 and a 12-week training and orientation program, all 58 counties in California were forced to put HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System, into their immediate realities and rank each client who came through for a houseless interview and intake process, and then that information within a 24-hour period gave the client a ranking on a ladder that was delivered by an algorithm. An algorithm is a mathematical equation. It has no human intake in it, and it is language influenced. So there were some terms that we did not know in 2021 that became prominent in ranking people in 2022, 23 through now 26.
Wait, before you go on, I want to clarify. Ranking people as in that's the way we get housing.
Yes.
It's not ranking for like a race or, when you're going to get your lottery ticket. This is housing.
Right. So this determines whether or not you are first on the list, second on the list, or 50th on the list, or 100th on the list. And what that did after 2022 was it slowed down the process of getting homeless people into permanent and or transitional homes. Now, what is a transitional home? That's another key word. Transitional housing was the thing that the Bay Area Community Services put people in who had high risk for age, disability, violence, children, etc., so that people actually had a gradation of their condition based on certain keywords that were written into this mathematical algorithm. And this is a giant machine somewhere in downtown Oakland that is run by Alameda County technicians. This thing does not have the capacity to reason. How does this situation that client A is in manifest itself with client Z or client M or client O or whatever? Which one should be first? Not are they first, or did they have the long-term chronic homelessness problem, and that means that you go in and out of a shelter, or you go in and out of living in your car, or you sleep in the park, or you sleep in a doorway, and for some reason you're not being able to get into a hotel with a voucher or a hotel without a voucher, or there's no program like our program, a roof over their heads, emergency to permanent housing, which literally takes people off the street, and we do an intake with them in about 2 hours, and then we take them to a hotel and put them in. Now what happened? Well, there was a political thing going on not only in the city of Berkeley and Alameda County, but also in the city of Oakland in Alameda County, where the renting tenants put up a political piece of legislation that was going to give tenants an opportunity to purchase the housing that they lived in just to keep the funding at a level that was affordable. So the Tenants Opportunity Purchasing Program was put into the suggestions and the petitions and the weekly, monthly meetings in Berkeley and in Oakland, trying to get the legislators for the city of Oakland, city of Berkeley, to adopt TOPA, Tenants Opportunity to Purchase Act, which would have allowed tenants to control how high or how low the rent would go. This would prevent evictions because you obviously are not going to organize to let the rent go up every year, as is allowed under rent control in most of the cities that we live in California. Also, you did not want to be in a position that you could be evicted for someone selling the property to another owner who does not live on the property, and then that person or that group or that corporation would decide, okay, we're going to take all the tenants out and nobody's going to live here, and then we're going to re-rent it at a higher price. So the Tenants Opportunity to Purchase Act, better known as TOPA, became a political weapon against those of us like homefulness, those of us like a roof over their heads, those of us like self-help hunger program and others who were actually putting people into housing in 24 to 48 hours, not 6 months, not 6 weeks, and now we're up to 12 to 18 months before you can get into housing through the BACS program, because the HMIS process that puts you into a rank order for housing, they call it the Housing Eligibility List. That does not mean you're going to get housing even when 3 or 4 people move out because they found something permanent or they left the state.
Wait, let me interject. And so a lot of this might blow your mind with the impossibility of it. I want to get very real.
Yes.
And we are on the street. We're already dealing with a multitude, a multiverse, if you will, right, of struggles and impossibilities and chaos and barely holding it together one day at a time. That's what me and Ma were in the situation of. We lost our Section 8 voucher. It's something I don't talk about much. There are very intense hoops that you have to jump through that are absolutely, literally can twist your head around and drive you insane if we aren't already. This is what we're hearing out of Omwale's mouth. I'm already confused. I'm just going to be real. And I'm an advocate too. But
Okay.
I want to say that what has happened now is that they have closed two of the shelters / housing in that ridiculously meager list.
Yeah, not shelters. These are transitional hotels.
Right.
So understand that. Let me clarify
Yeah.
some of this. Let me clarify some of this. I guess you could say facilities assets that the government has. And when I'm saying government now, I'm talking about Alameda County. There were apartments and hotels that were built by private industry that were taken over by county funds. Those county funds came from all of those of us who voted between 2016, 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024 for issues or regulations or proposals that would give money to helping the homeless get housed. That money was not monitored correctly because it went into most of the general fund accounts rather than a separate housing account.
Mm.
And from that, those funds over the last 6 or 7 years have found their way to other areas of homelessness control, but not literally putting people into homes.
Exactly. And
So
the way,
what-
before you say more,
Okay.
similarly in the, so-called so-called Berkeley, they've closed the family shelter, the only one that's there. Not shelter, but housing, excuse me, again, right?
They closed the Holland, which is in downtown Oakland. They closed the Henry Robinson. What they did not do was adequately fund any of the hotels or motels that they tried to take over to house parents with children under the age of 18. Berkeley has no facility, no program, no shelter, no nothing for parents with children under the age of 18. What we have in Alameda County as a part of HMIS now is something called the ETA, or the Emergency Transitional Age Program, which is for people 18 years of age to 24. So if you are a family with children that range in age from say 5 to 19, your 19-year-old can suddenly be stuck into a shelter with other 19, 18, or 24-year-olds, but your family would be separated.
So we're going to stop right now just because, your mind is probably, whirling around in a
Wilting.
giant, frightening sand mixer. But I do want to let you all know that this is the landscape that our relatives are dealing with right now when they are perpetrating over 5 to 6 sweeps every single day. Shout out to Sweeps Defense and Jazz and Satya and all the warriors
Yes.
on the front line as well. Poor Magazine's on that, and Wood Street Commons every day. And yet they know there is nowhere for us to go. Those relatives that you just saw, the Roofless Radio reporters, they took their RV and they have nowhere to go now. We have to end it up, but go ahead, Amoy, last words.
I need to say that all of the money that came out of those 5 years of voting for housing for the homeless, people had in mind that folks would come around and write their names down and their dates of birth and telephone numbers, and then they would take them over to a hotel and something. And they decided that it was too expensive to continue the voucher program or to continue the at-risk for COVID program or the COVID program, and they closed down the Radisson and the Days Inn over there off of Eads near Hagenberger, so all those people had to go somewhere. But one of the things they did not do was they refused to renovate any of the 1,500 empty properties that we have, and they also used money for housing to sweep the encampments at $1 million a sweep.
That part.
Wow.
This is how your tax dollar is being
Wow.
misused. It's called misappropriation of funds. That people go to jail for that.
Thank
That's
you.
a felony.
Thank you. That's extremely important, and I do want to also shout out again to our family at Wood Street Commons, and who is right now working with the Mandela, or whatever the fake name they called it, using Nelson Mandela's name in vain.
Mandela Parkway.
Right, Mandela Apartments, because they're about to close them too.
Man.
Yeah. So apparently, who knew that had a timeline? It was only for this amount of time. What I keep wondering, and what people like myself and Omawali are working on, and shout out to Sister Junebug and Leger and all of us who do this work, where do you want us to go? Right? Well, they have this vision, obviously, that our bodies need to be disappeared, erased. You can't do that to human beings. And you know they aren't going to on our watch. So stay folk on this, folks, because we're going to be coming back to conversate about this, and we're going to be actually organizing a press conference specifically around this non-profiteering situation, because let's be real, there are some people getting paid in those systems, while the rest of us are sleeping on the street, barely lucky enough to have a warm blanket.
Freezing to death.
You already know. So you are listening and watching Poor People's Radio. That's Poor People's Revolutionary Radio. Big snaps from my beautiful sister warrior, Auntie Omawali here.
Yes.
Manna from Heaven. She's going to be transitioning out because it's been a really long day.
Knowledgeable.
While we're doing that, though, we're going to shift to Minneapolis.
Tanya.
Yes. We're going to shift to Ojibwe and other territories that are so-called Minneapolis and Minnesota. We have the blessing of having one of our family members here derive and direct from that part of Turtle Island, who's involved in the reparations work for migrante indigenous relatives who are being violently kidnapped, harassed, attacked, and killed in this stolen land. Warrior family, Lex, welcome to Poor People's Radio, family. We miss you.
Hi, fam. It's so good to see you. Thanks so much for having me. Tiny.
Hold on
Then
a
with
second.
the other over there, I can
We'll
see
take
you
that
over
one more
there.
time. Hey, Lex, what's up?
Hey, are y'all hearing me?
Yes, we
Yes.
Good. So good to see you both. It's such an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
do. For sure. Can you tell listeners and viewers? Well, first of all, you know you're reporting from the front line over there, so maybe just give folks a little landscape about what's happening, and then the warrior work of you and your siblings and other relatives and what you're doing, and especially that reparations model of support. It's just so beautiful. Go ahead, though, fam. Let us know what's up.
Yeah. Well, I think people all over the world are watching Minneapolis right now, and I think people are seeing some of what's happening in some of the images here. Yeah, I'll say every day here I see some of the very worst of what humans are capable of, and also very bright side by side all the time, you know. Yeah, the federal invasion of ICE agents here began at the beginning of December, and has really escalated a few times since then. At this point, I've kind of lost track, but there's more than 2,000, maybe 3,000 ICE agents in our town, in our metro area. And of course, we all know that ICE has been active and has been stealing people from families for as long as they've been around. And so that part isn't new. But what they're doing right now in Minneapolis is truly rolling up in snatch squads, jumping out of their cars, grabbing people from bus stops and driving away in 20 seconds. And that's happening. I would say, you know, that's happened 20 times within 3 blocks of my house in the last week. That's just happening all over the place all the time. ICE is also, you know, clearly really upset about being documented, being held accountable for what they're doing. And so they're also really escalating how they're interacting with community members who are there to observe, to document, to make noise when ICE is out in the streets. And so we've all heard about the murder of Renee Good, who was a mother who was killed in the street by an ICE agent for observing, for witnessing what they were doing. but beyond that, you know, observers who are there to document what ICE is doing are having their windshields smashed in, being pulled from their cars. U.S. citizens are being taken into detention and held for the day or for overnight and then released again. Yeah, a lot of things that most of us in the United States haven't seen happen here in this particular way. And then we're also seeing like tens of thousands of people say that you will not do this in our city, that we are going to stand up for each other and you can't take our neighbors away. And that looks like so many different things. It looks like, you know, like today I was driving home from somewhere and I drove past a school and I just saw 20 different people at pickup time just along that main drag, all standing there with whistles around their necks, just looking out for these babies and their families who are picking them up from school. And there's huge, complex, totally chaotic operations of trying to get food and groceries and diapers to families who have to stay inside. Many of my neighbors on my block haven't gone to work in a month because they're afraid, and rightly so, to leave the house. We're seeing people, give each other rides, figure out how people can get their medical needs met, just like really taking care of each other. And you know, I'll say, like, you know, 2 days ago I went out to take my dog for a walk and I walked out my front door and I heard whistling and horns honking. So I threw my dog back inside and I ran down the block, and the gas station on my corner, I stumbled into the situation and I saw, you know, a big ring of probably 6 or 8 ICE agents surrounding a guy as he was getting gas. They've been grabbing people at gas stations while they're filling up their cars. And I saw all these ICE agents surrounding them. And I also saw a crowd of 20 people. And I saw 20 people, everybody has their phone out, everybody had their whistle, and everybody was just surrounding these ICE agents, whistling, yelling, telling them to get out of our city, recording what they were doing. And they left. They left that man there and they left and they went on their way. And I went over and checked on him afterwards, you know, and he said, you know, he's like, I'm a U.S. citizen. I pulled out my passport and they left. And I do believe that they left because he pulled out his passport. I also have seen it happen in other situations where they leave because they don't want that much attention on what they're doing. And I see so many of my neighbors taking risks to be out on the street corners, out in their cars, patrolling, so that ICE doesn't have a chance to grab people in that way. And a lot of people who've never done anything like that in their entire lives, you know, and it's, they're like, this is their time that they're like, all right, I'm going to do something that's uncomfortable. I'm going to get to know my neighbors and I'm going to be out there and show up.
Ashe. I mean, that is the message, you know, as we witness our relatives from the settler colonial lie of borders and, you know, whose belongs in this stolen land. Just, don't even get me started. But the resistance and the power of relatives coming together. I want to shout out to our relatives in Tavangar, LA. Same kind of powerful, you know, continuous resistance and showing up in any way and always. And I, you know, ultimately all of these places, Portland and so-called Portland and, you know, Louisiana, etc. I just wanted to ask you too, because, you know, I think one of the things that, and I want to shout out and lift up Keith Porter, another relative, again, a citizen of this stolen land, an African descendant father murdered, to Silverio Viegas, who also murdered. So many, in addition to Sister Renee Good. Just clarifying that Renee was not the first person that they murdered. You know, some of my black nationalist friends said, well, now they're killing themselves. So what does that mean, right? I'm just being real. These fake lines of race are very real. Obviously, if you're not down with that agenda now, you're an enemy. That's it. Which is really a terrifying moment. We've already been seeing it happen. But I just wondered, Lex, in terms of living in that moment and living in that terror, is it generalized anxiety? or are you just surviving? I mean, how are people's emotions right now? I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are struggling. People are really struggling. Um, I um starting of course with like all of the folks who are staying home and are afraid that they might get picked up for detention or deportation. Yeah, I'm hearing more and more as every day goes by from neighbors who are saying like it's really impacting my kids that I'm, home like this, and I'm really worried about how it's impacting their health and their well-being, or it's making me sick to keep staying home like this, to not be able to go out, to be so afraid, I um and then for those of us who yeah, have some of the privileges, that means that we can be out and about and are trying to use those to witness and to try to protect our neighbors. I think um it's a lot, I think my job is I'm a fitness trainer. I like teach fitness classes, and I was like went into the gym today where I was like gonna hold my noon drop-in class for people, and like a couple different people came in and they're like, oh shit, hold on, let me like leave my jacket outside the gym because it has tear gas all over it, and that's like and they were talking about how they're gonna make a sign for the entry to their building that's like, hey, if you have tear gas on your coat, leave it outside, don't bring it into our apartment, and
Wow.
that wears on people, just like that, the amount of escalation that so many people are experiencing, of just like having ICE harass you in your car, even for those of us who they don't have any power over us technically, people are on edge,
Yeah.
and I'll also say like people are really connected. Like I feel
Hmm.
more connected to the people I love in the city and to the people that I didn't know until this month than I ever have before. And
That's deep.
it is the sort of camaraderie with strangers that this kind of intense moment creates, that's like um yeah, like the feeling that we have each other's backs, and that we
Sure.
are trying to take care of each other, and that is really like the medicine that is getting me through, and I think that I see is getting so many people through, is like seeing yeah, just like walking down the street and people checking in with each other, people, total strangers checking in with each other, like somebody stopped me on the street on my way to my friend's house and asked me if I had a light, and I said I didn't, but then we were chatting and she's just like, how is it over on Park Avenue? I heard it was bad on Park Avenue. And I was like, I wouldn't go over to Park Avenue, just like that kind of energy of like, we're in it together. I think all of the violence of this society and just how isolated people are can make it really hard to feel that connection on the day to day, and it's available to all of us on the day to day, but it can be hard to find it, and I think this moment really like brings it out.
Oh, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Lex, again for being here with us, for standing up, and also all the folks in Minneapolis, and again, I saw a sign too that said, what if there wasn't a video? And yes, we can see, you know the definitely the violence, like my sister Tani was saying, has no race or color right now, or class, but again, the importance about people, pulling out the cameras, doing cop watching, also, making sure that the people are not being violently abused, in these, harassment, by the ICE agents. And then again, also realizing too, the times that we live it upon too, right? Making sure that we're safe, that we're not putting ourselves in situations, right? It almost seems like they're looking for an excuse to shoot people, to hurt people,
Yeah.
even innocent bystanders who are just making sure people are not being violently being abused. But I want to say also congratulating for all those fiercelers, folks, who even after this is happening came in hundreds, in numbers, to honor Renee, and to stand up against this injustice, that that some people are comparing to Nazi Germany. They're talking about going into, door by door and again harassing and so-called, looking for a list of Somalis and all these, uh, fear that they also put on that community, right?
Oh, I just want to say, Lex, because we're running out of time and we have one last guest, but I want to check in with you quickly because I want to lift up something your sibling Ashley said, and shout out to Ashley, another warrior with Lex and so many more there. That one of their findings was that in this repair work, this reparations, redistribution work of keeping people fed, and rent paid while they're being forced to stay, hiding out in this ridiculous moment of sick terror. But now they were noticing that poor people who they're dealing with needed the resources all the time. And I was like, there goes the bank of community reparations, right? And I just want to shout out to you, Lex, as a radical redistributor. For folks who don't know, Lex is a member of our Solidarity family at Poor Magazine and a People School alumni. And just, maybe as we close out, just your thoughts on that repair work and how it kind of is going full circle.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So much of what I learned about any of that, I learned from y'all. So thank you. My sister Ashley, I'm not really on the internet, but she sure is. And is a really powerful person who has some social media platform and has been sharing a lot about what's happening in Minneapolis for folks that she knows around the country. And with that has been inviting people to give money to meet people's basic needs here in Minneapolis. And she's been just sort of redirecting the money that comes to her to people's Venmos and bank accounts and cash apps and whatever to pay their rent, to buy their groceries, all of that. And a lot of money has come in and all that money's gone right back out. And I got to, at some point, she handed me an envelope of cash that I walked right down the street and handed to my neighbor so that they could pay their rent that month, which was already late. And I just could feel, I was like, this person who lives on my block is an important part of my block. And if she can't pay her rent this month and she gets evicted, that also affects me. That's my neighbor who lives on my block and who I want to keep living on my block. And she wants to keep living on my block. She wants to keep being my neighbor. And I just feel, everybody deserves a home. Everybody deserves food. Let's do whatever we need to do to get that. And that's actually good for the rest of us too. It's like good for the city. If I just even try to imagine what would happen if all of these folks who are being impacted right now were to be evicted or were to, I'm like, we need to figure out how to make it possible for people to stay inside and to stay safe as long as they can until we are able to push these ICE troops out of our town. And it's so simple, it's just so simple. And it's an opportunity, like you said, that's here every day. And those needs are here. And I really hope this is a chance that it's like, cool, help your neighbor pay their rent even when ICE isn't here. Film the police, not just ICE. All of these things are things that we are practicing now, and let's keep doing them beyond this moment.
Amadeo, that's it right there, family. We love you so much, Lex.
Thank you, Lex.
Please give your love to Ashley as well. And I just want to send so many hugs and tears for our relatives dealing with that in that occupied land. And thank you so much, family.
Yes, thank you for standing up.
We'll talk to you really soon.
Thanks for having me on. So good to be with you.
Yeah. Love you. You're listening and watching Poor People's Radio. That's PNN, not CNN. Is Brother Robbie with us, Tibu? So we're going to welcome in our last guest tonight. Is definitely last not least. Right now, as we're dealing with the war on relatives from the other side of the false borders, which is a construct because Indigenous people have the right to traverse Mama Earth for whatever reason they need to, as all people do. Don't listen to what the settlers tell you. Excuse me. But we know there's a war on the poor, and it's raging every day. Even in these so-called privileged places that the colonizers would like you to believe only the wealth hoarders frolic and steal land and water. Yes, I'm talking about so-called Marin County again, and we have the privilege and the blessing of having our badass warriors from Camp Compassion and other warriors from that territory who are in fact houseless in those territories. Guess what? There's poor people in Marin County. How about that? But are standing up to the settler colonial system that is trying to tow our homes, take our tents, and evict us for the lie of rent. Robbie Powelson, welcome back to Poor People's Radio.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Good, thank you.
Now here with Sean Durney, man of the hour.
Hey,
Hey,
How are you doing?
Sean, warrior hero. Can you tell us, Sean, a little bit about what happened? What's going on?
yeah, it's
Or Robbie, whoever.
yeah, no worries. No, I just want to say thanks. I just want to start out like because where I was listening to your show before we came on here, and I just really want to like, just put my heart out that it's hard. I don't get to see out much like to what's going on in the world because obviously my problems are day to day and just survival. But I just wanted to stop for a second and just put some love out and just see that I'm really happy to see that like there's something being done about it, that there's something that can happen. And like you said, like whatever we can do to like, bring that awareness. And that's what happened here. Like that was the same thing. Robbie was able to come and, get people around and, yeah, they were going to take my place and it was just a simple, display of like, like togetherness and if nothing else, it was just nice to see people show up and care, even if it didn't work out. Like it was nice to have like some defense there and like somebody who cares and just like when the whole world kind of turned your back on you, it just feels like okay, there is some hope and yeah. So all the way around, you gotta be thankful that there's some support when it really comes down to it, and that's what I'm grateful for.
Because on January 6th, the sheriffs, we had like half a dozen sheriffs, Novato PD down here trying to take the motorhome. And Sean just stood on business, put a note on the window that said, not exiting unless you show me a warrant. And they came out, they all ready to come, NBC television crews there observing them, and they stood down. And actually, just the other day, after a protest around Renee Good in Marin, I handed a flyer, because we're developing a cop watch here on Bedford Road to document the sheriffs and the police. And I went up to one of the lieutenants there and I gave him the flyer. Said, "This is we're protesting your colleague Mike Thompson. Just so you know, you could put that in the evidence file." Anyway, he calls up Mike Thompson. And Mike Thompson comes running down. He comes running down the protest hall. He says, "Oh no, we're not going to enter that motorhome without a warrant." And we're not, we're not quite sure what we're going to do now. We're reevaluating this situation. So it's a power of, even though, Sean sued, like, the judge denied the restraining order, there's still power in community because lots of people came out and,
Oh, it was nice. I mean that really lost my hope in a lot of things, because at that time I was like, this is the point when the law is supposed to work, right? If you're gonna abide by the law and follow the law and work within something that's chewing you up, and then at some point you got to be able to hit a button and go like, okay, look, we got to stop. And then when that didn't happen, that really scared me. That was like a loss of grounding underneath me. And so it was really nice to at least have like another layer that came in and saved my ass. So
yeah.
Oh, let me just for listeners and viewers who don't know the backstory a little bit. First of all, so Sean, you're currently houseless in somewhere in Marin County. I don't know where it is, but
yeah,
Novato.
Novato.
Yeah,
Okay. And how long have you been staying in? It was in your RV or your van?
yeah. Well, I live in a 45-foot Rockstar bus, like
Okay.
but it literally was when I got here. It was set up to run my construction company out of, right, and so that's what I was doing at the time. And when they handled the first cleanup, it just made it so. I mean, they ceased my ability to work, right? Like just ruined my entire chances of operating as a contractor any further from that point. And that was 2 years ago, and so effectively made me homeless at that moment. Like it was just poorly handled, and it basically was done without any feedback, right? So it's like there wasn't. I had no say in what happened. It nothing. Just took my front end, like everything I had, and just took whatever they wanted and left with, whatever I could grab and throw inside the bus at the time. And so that's what started this whole thing off. And so like now they're saying that I'm a nuisance because I can't, I'm always trying to clean up after that initial incident. And so without any feedback or way to stop it, like it just kind of got railroaded into this, thing that came down on the sixth where they were actually going to tow my vehicle. And so, and at this point, it's just been, well, something has to change. I mean, all this time, money, and spent, and then they're just going to end up towing me because like I could never get my life to turn around and honestly like deal with what initially happened. And so, um, so that's what we're working on right now. But that's how it came up to this head. It's like
Yeah.
if they'd taken my vehicle, then I mean it's been really really cold and miserable the past time since then. I don't know how I would have been able to make that, much less like continue on with any sort of like getting my life back together.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think that's what's really important, and just to listeners and viewers to understand, yeah, especially for us poor people, working class people, right? Holding it down, your own micro business. You're already holding on by a thread. And then they take an asset, right, that you're dependent on for your daily resources, and then expect us to just come back up like everything's fine. No, they're actually trying to destroy us. And I say that in that kind of I use those terms now because I feel so overwhelmed by these violent sweeps and tows that they're doing to poor people. They're doing the same thing in Uchun, Oakland. I don't know if you've heard the beginning. And then they don't even have housing for us. I mean, we're humbly staying in these RVs or vans or tents or whatever. And we're not bothering anybody. We're not killing anybody. And then they take it. And they expect us to go where exactly? So I just really, it's so powerful and it's really inspirational. I just want you to know, Sean, that you and Robbie and all the relatives out there, for whatever and however long it lasts, it could be one day. But one day you said, no, not today. Not today. You're not going to dismantle my life today. And
no,
I think, right, I think more of us really have to lift that up because that's, in the same way, in many ways, the same thing they're doing in Minneapolis, the same thing they're doing on the front line of these violent kidnaps. They're saying, no, no, not today. You're not going to take our relatives.
no, and that's
So,
that's 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 what I want to say too. Is that was really good to hear that because like I mean you know it's humbling to have it happen to you, and it's good to know that this is we that there's something happening out there, because it's like to be real clear, I still hold my contracting license. I can't use it. I can't operate here at all. Like I've been stripped of all my ability to work, and I still hold a valid license right now. Like that's to anyone who knows it's worth gold, and to be able to say that in itself is just like
I
you know
say,
yeah. So like we hopefully we can get some people together and like get this to be all I really want to do is get people to where they want to go. Because I think people want to like, I think there's a better way to fit this together than just like segregating everything and hoping that it goes away. It's
right,
like, there's a lot that we can do to work together to find some more long term solutions to, now I don't know
right,
what to do about ICE because that's just nuts, but,
right.
we got to start being better people to each other. That's all I got to say about that.
Oh, I just want to say too, Homefulness, Marin County, or Homefulness
Yes.
occupied, Miwok territory. We definitely, me and Robbie have been working on that for a minute, and there is so much stolen land there and so
Yeah.
much hoarded resources. So yeah, there is a solution. For those of you just listening and tuning in, me and myself and Tibu and my son and Mutiado are all the formerly houseless residents of Homefulness. And this wasn't supported by no settler government, it was supported by the people. So let's live into that dream
That's right.
and make it happen. Any last words, relatives, before we sign out? Go ahead, babe. Anything else you want to say,
Um,
Robbie or Sean?
Uh, I I just want to say is that just thanks to everybody who's listening. Thanks to those who care. And like I said, there's a point. Like I put my foot down, and I think it's time we pivot and see what we
Oh,
have. You know, we got something here. We got something, and it's our what they say. It's like, you know, it's like our duty. We got to do something.
It's our
Yeah.
duty to
So
fight. Yes.
yeah,
Ashe.
yeah.
Hey,
All right.
Robbie, is
Yeah.
there ways that people can support, find what you guys are doing, get involved in that area?
We're working on it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have something for you real soon. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah, we'll follow up with we'll put an editorial on the Poor Magazine. How about, and because right now main thing is we're making sure we need people out here getting ready for the next phase of things because we don't know what the sheriffs are going to do.
Oh,
So we
but yeah, we'll have a official. We'll put something together so that because we got to generate support for this whole road and stuff like that. So
okay.
yeah, we will. We'll reach out to you again, and let you know. But thank you so much.
Ashe. And for people who don't know, you can look at Camp Compassion's column on poormagazine.org. And Robbie is a contributor, and we'll get something from Sean as well. Again, we do the media that we do because we have to be heard. Our voices are not heard. They're not listening to us, and they would rather continue to talk about us without us. Thank you, family. We love you so much, and we'll
yeah,
keep
thank
Thank
talking.
you.
you so much.
All
Thank you
right,
so
all
much. Much
right.
love.
Much
For
love.
show, for show.
Peace.
Again, you're watching and listening Poor People's Radio. That's PNN, not CNN, family. Our last segment for tonight is the addiction doula, because we know that sadly, oftentimes, especially with this settler colonial lie of rent and survival by any means necessary, we oftentimes get lost in the chemical warfare that they have coming for us. And our beautiful sister warrior survivor of sweeps, of Wood Street violent eviction, Sister Leger, now a homefulness resident, is also one of our Poor People's Radio graduates, and she has a beautiful new segment from Addiction Doula.
This is KEXU 96.1 FM on the Poor News Network. Greetings and abundant risings. This is your addiction doula Leger on the Holistic Detox and Recovery segment, connecting you to traditional ways to be reborn and liberated from addiction. Today, I'm sending a message of strength to those who are walking the recovery road. As we are still fresh in the new year and making better decisions and living in a healthy way, I just want to remind everyone that healing takes time and to have patience and gratitude for the journey. I very soon will be taking the next step in my own spiritual journey and wanted to share some of the knowledge that all should remember when times get hard and we are living a life where we are healing, and to remind us to be gentle to ourselves. Don't give up. No matter what you're going through right now, don't give up. I don't care how heavy it feels. I don't care how confusing it looks. I want to share an Ifa teaching that reminds us why we must keep going. Ifa teaches us that this too shall pass. Day cannot see the light, and the light cannot see the day. That means you cannot see what's ahead of you. You can't see what's on the horizon, but that doesn't mean nothing is coming. Ifa tells us that life is made of hills and valleys. When you're on top of a hill, understand that eventually there will be a descent. There will be a valley. But if you're in a valley right now, if you're in a low place, a struggle, a season of pain, Ifa is telling you something important. There's another hill ahead of you. You just can't see it yet. That's how life works. And it's not meant to discourage us. It's meant to teach us faith. Because if we could see everything ahead of us, there would be no faith. There would be no growth. There would be no glory. So instead, we're asked to develop belief in ourselves, belief in the Creator, and belief in our ancestors who walk with us. Oromila teaches us that the elder who possesses patience, possesses everything. Sometimes the work is not to move. Sometimes the work is not to quit. And sometimes the work is to simply endure and wait. So don't give up, because when you give up, when you walk off of your path because it's hard, because it's not working fast enough, because you lose faith in the outcome, you lose what was meant for you. But if you stay on that path, if you don't change who you are, if you don't abandon yourself, if you remain patient and faithful, you can obtain it all. You cannot give up. You have to remember who you are. Remember that you've already survived. Remember that you've already accomplished. Every single one of us has been through something, and every single one of us is still here. And that means something. You have the ability to get through anything. And just remember, don't give up. Thank you for listening to your addiction doula on the Holistic Detox and Recovery segment, connecting you to traditional ways to be reborn and liberated from addiction on KEXU 96.1 FM, the Poor News Network.
Ceremony and press conference at 3390 Cesar Chavez Street at the corner of Mission Street in Acopayelamo, San Francisco, as we slowly work to unsell another small part of Mama Earth, and again be with us in prayer. So that's all for this edition for Poor People's Radio. To get our complete podcast, you can go to www.poormagazine.org or Poor Magazine on SoundCloud or whatever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, at Poor Magazine, or at Poverty Scala, or Poor News Network on YouTube. All power to the people.
Power!
Power!